Hey there, everybody. How's it going? Wow, this video quality looks real scuffed. So to update everybody on the progress that I've got going on in the video, still downloading a lot of the footage that I need. My hope is by the end of this month, I will have like the footage, like just the footage of myself as well as with Stevie, and then I'll slowly start adding in additional material from there. Try and get a good flow of things figured out. So that's it. I'd say in terms of percentages, if I'm gonna have to put down percentage in terms of where it is, maybe we're gonna be about like 20%, maybe 25%. So we're getting there. Sorry it's taking so long. So the weather's been kind of snowy. It's a little bit more annoying than anything else, honestly. The the snow festival is coming up, Sapporo Snow Festival. It's I mean, nobody I know who's like local actually goes to the snow festival because it's just full of tourists. I think everybody just kind of sits at home and watches it on TV if they're actually that interested in the snow festival at all. There's just way too many tourists. Things are kind of annoying. When you get closer and closer to like Odori, which is like where the big one is, there's about three of them, I think. But when you get too close to the big famous one, which is Odori, you're just packed full of tourists. I mean, even with the current situation going on with Japan and China, and the major drop off in Chinese tourists, it's just not a great thing. Nothing particularly has happened recently since the past week. Oh, one thing, the kerosene situation. We kind of got that hopefully resolved a little bit. The gas guy thinks it might be the kerosene guy thinks it might be a meter issue. So they're gonna install a new meter, and then they're gonna see what the consumption looks like, and then we're gonna be billed like in the future for that particular month. So thankfully, we will not be we will not be taking a $900 hit, because that would be wild. So because I don't have a lot of things to say, I'm just going to go through. There were a few like comments and questions that people had for the previous video that might be good to answer to the best of my ability. So the one of the comments that I'm gonna try and respond to here with so this is by Mike. How is the awareness of like so like media targeted at older men viewed on the Japanese internet with so many remakes being produced? Is there discussion about this trend is changing the TV landscape? I'm gonna say I have no idea. I'm so sorry. I have no idea. Um, I don't really know. It might probably be the problem might probably be that a lot of like my friends here are old men. So um they are, but they're also kind of like weird. Um so a lot of the friends that I make over here are on like things like language exchange apps. And so one of the difficulties is that you kind of get a specific kind of demographic because the kind of person who's willing to go onto a language exchange app and speak to a foreigner, even if it is in Japanese, um, the kind of person who's willing to do that is going to be not necessarily reflective of the overall general Japanese normie kind of sentiment, realistically. It takes a lot of like guts because you think about, for example, right, like in your shoes, you think about like how many of your friends perhaps in places like America or Canada or whatever speaking the dominant language there, how many of them actually go out and become friends with someone for the express purpose of like learning a foreign language? Like most of your friends probably don't do that, right? And so their preferences and their sentimentalities and a lot of different things are gonna kind of be kind of different. And most of the and there's kind of like a filter that kind of happens because most of the Japanese friends that I know that I've made who are not like Hello Talk people are their friends with me specifically because they're friends with people who were Hello Talk people. So they generally have a kind of a more open, like chill response to about this. And so admittedly, I don't know. I got a few like older friends, few osan, but these osan are like not like regular osan, right? They're they're osan who are like specifically interested in speaking and engaging with foreigners, and so they kind of consume a lot more like foreign media, even if they don't really speak the language particularly well. They are generally like more open about wanting to go abroad or do things abroad. They're more interested in like foreign cultures and stuff like that. And so their takes on like their takes on like these kinds of media it's it's like they don't really talk about it too much, but that might just be because of the overall demographics of my friend group. Um, Online, I have no idea. I have no idea, to be honest, online, because I'm not too active right now in terms of online groups. The real answer is just I just don't have the time. I have I have so many full time offline obligations and stuff like that. I have friends and I have friends and a partner and all that kind of stuff that, all offline. So I can't really spend as much time doing stuff online. I can if I didn't have a YouTube channel that I need to get back to all the time. But that's just kind of the difficulties of juggling your time and all this kind of stuff. Um, but yes, thank you, Mike Semano. Thank you for the question. I'm really sorry that I gave such a non-answer, but realistically, I have no clue. I have no clue. At least, maybe with some more research and talking to more people about this question specifically, I might be able to. Uh, Anon Lasso asks, uh, whether Hokkaido and the general northern areas have an amicable Ainu relations or history of there's some kind of tension. So yeah, that's actually kind of a difficult one as well because it's one of those things where it's like anybody who is particularly aware or does any kind of research about Ainu uh, has a very specific framework that generally leans more towards like, oh, we did some wild shit to these people, right? Um, but the thing here is that the vast majority of Hokkaido people know about the Ainu, but don't have much more of an interest other than a passing acknowledgement that stuff happened to them and that they used to be the native people here. Um, Once again, it's kind of one of those. It's kind of like I think most people, for example, in America would understand what has happened to Native Americans, but um, like the kind of person who's willing to grapple with those kinds of relationships are much more likely to have way more sympathy because they've done like the kind of research to do it. Most people know about like little like I knew facts, right? They know like a little bit like little like I knew facts and all that kind of stuff. Like they know like Sapporo is like a Ainu name. It's an Ainu word. They know that kind of stuff. They know things, they know like Shiraoi and Upopoi, and they know like all like the little places, the Ainu stuff. They know Golden Kamui. Golden Kamui is everywhere here, actually. Golden Kamui used to be blazed all over the Sapporo Classic merchandising and advertisement. So yeah, uh, there was I think there was like a time where they were selling Sapporo Classic you get like a 2 pack of Sapporo. No, not not 2 pack. You get a 6 pack of Sapporo Classic, and then you would get it with like what was it? I think it was a hat, but it was some kind of it was a golden kamui hat that came with Sapporo Classic, or something like that. And I really wish I could have gotten it, but I didn't. And now let's hope it comes back again. But admittedly, the problem is simply that a lot of the information about Ainu that's outside of the universities is going to be through the museums. And so a lot of these museums is kind of a lot of the museums kind of have their own difficulties in that Ainu culture is kind of fading away. Most of the times you see Ainu culture or Ainu facets of Ainu culture in especially in the bigger places like Sapporo is when it's deeply commoditized. When you have specifically Ainu things that are Ainu for sale. You have lodges that are restaurants selling authentic, quote unquote, authentic Ainu cuisine, all that kind of stuff. And so that's most of the experience with Ainu I found a lot of people are with. Now, this is not to say that there are not people who are deeply aware or deeply mindful of the Ainu, and but it is a much less. The discussion is not as strong as perhaps say North Americans and Native Americans are. I feel like it hasn't come up too often. But to be honest, also to be clear, I don't hang out in circles where I might be doing more Ainu stuff. I know Ryo Kwarai, she has written about Ainu and the vision of imperialism that is refracted in media like Golden Kamui. It's a little short, but it is nevertheless there. And when you think of Ainu in terms of how it's treated, it does have its own department, a faculty with regards to a specific form of indigenous studies at the big one at Hokudai at the Hokkaido University. So there are places there, and I'm trying to get somebody from Hokudai to actually talk about Ainu, but Japanese academics are like really skittish about being on camera, so it's a little tough right now. Shaves is asking, what are you doing for full time work and how's that been going? Yeah, so simple enough. I'm just an English teacher, just a regular old English teacher here. Um, I'm pretty much just doing this until I get to the stage where I will transition into university work in Japan. That's the hope. But if that's not going to be the case, then I'll just keep trudging along. Um, there are a few reasons why I'm an English teacher. The first one is simply because where I am and the people I'm working with, really nice people, really great people, um, and it's stable. It has good work life balance, and my partner is here. She's here, so it's not really. So I'm gonna be in Sapporo. That's just where I'm gonna be. So that kind of stuff. The pay is like quite average, but it's kind of quite average a lot of places. In Sapporo, the yen is kind of getting a little weak now, but yeah, that's just what it is. Um, Nothing fancy about that. Uh, but I'm not an ALT. If that's what you're curious, I'm not an ALT. Uh, but yeah. Um, and then Sith says Kizakiko pilgrimage when. Um, I do want to go to Kizakiko. I do want to go to Kizakiko. I might go during like Obon. It's like crazy hot during there. It's crazy hot during then, but I might want to go. I'm not going during Golden Week because I've missed in Hokkaido the cherry blossoms. The cherry blossoms are blooming in during Golden Week. They're later than the rest of Japan because the rest of Japan is just generally hotter. So the cherry blossoms bloom much earlier in Japan, whereas over in Hokkaido they bloom in Golden Week. And I want to actually see the cherry blossoms for once because usually during the Golden Week and Obon, like these kinds of times during the year, I'm down south getting footage. I'm down south getting footage. I'm down south doing interviews. I'm down south trying to do and get in contact with people and all that kind of stuff. Okay, that's it. That's what I got. The problem here is that I I miss the cherry blossoms every single time. So I want to catch it at least once. I want to catch it at least once. I don't want to be in a situation where I go like 5 years, 6 years in Japan, and then I just don't see the actual cherry blossoms. um, so I feel like if I'm gonna go to Nagano and I'm gonna go to Kizakiko, then I'm gonna try and do it during Obon, which is wild because it's really really hot and humid and whatnot. But that's probably gonna be the best time to do it. I'm a little worried because Obon is kind of weird. So if anybody is curious, Obon is the holiday period where people are supposed to technically go back to their hometowns, visit family, pray to the deceased, essentially do all of these things like where they're actually born. So Obon is kind of an interesting situation where you have a lot of people from the big cities actually like fly back home. And then they fly back home and then they spend time at home with their family and loved ones. This is really fascinating because usually people would be going to more touristy places in other times of the week. Golden Week, for example, people would be flying to more touristy places. But if people who live in the big cities have moved there from the big cities, during times like Obon, they're actually going to be flying back to their hometowns. And so one of the things about that is, well, these smaller hometowns all of a sudden get a little bit more busy. And so as a result, depending upon how am I actually going to get there, it could be more or less expensive. I also want to try and get an interview time locked in. I want to try and get an interview time locked in for when I talk to some of these, when I talk to people, because I want to go to Kizakiko and I want to do the pilgrimage, but I also want to make sure that because I have limited time, that when I go and do the pilgrimage, I'm able to get in contact with like city officials or somebody there who can talk about the Please series in some kind of meaningful capacity. And so that requires me like trying to get an actual like schedule set up and everything. And it can be a little bit more difficult because like the emails are kind of like very non-committal in a little way. Um, I always set aside a budget of like 10,000 yen, ichiban. But because a lot of interviews in Japan have to be done with cash, like you don't really like sit. It's an expectation that if you're gonna get somebody to like sit down and talk to you about it, like you have to like pay them for their time. Which okay, it's fine, but it is like a very different kind of interview culture than what I'm necessarily used to. So yeah, that's my progress for today. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you everybody for listening. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. I will see you next week. Once again, please leave any comments or questions, and I'm going to answer them for the next week when I do my progress update for next week. So cheers. Bye bye.